Good evening and welcome to the Border Zone project. This week, several strong statements were made by US officials. Ukraine became an enhanced opportunities partner of the NATO. US Secretary of State Pompeo discussed unity of free countries facing threats from China and Russia. Today, my special guest is Permanent Representative of the United States to NATO, Ambassador Kэй Bэйli Hatchison. Ambassador Hutchinson, welcome to the Border Zone.
Thank you very much. It's good to be with you.
Thank you very much. I will have to start with the urgent news coming at the moment, and I will ask to comment you on the very familiar thing for you and for the whole world. Today, Georgian State Security Service found out and arrested, detained a Russian citizen who came to Georgia, and they made a statement that this citizen was going to make assassination in Georgia. And all Georgian media made a statement that he came here with an order from Ramzan Kadyrov to assassinate very famous Georgian journalists. What I would like to ask you, if possible, is that how you evaluate such a behavior of the Kremlin when they attacked Russian people in Great Britain, I mean Skripal case, and other cases like this, Litvinenko before.
Well, of course, I am disheartened that something like that would be happening or could be happening in Georgia or anywhere else. The disinformation and the illegal takeover of sovereign countries like the territory in Georgia, like the territory in Ukraine, is something that all of us are standing against. Our NATO alliance is standing against the Russian aggression in Georgia and Ukraine. Most certainly the United States is as well. And I think what happened with the former Russian citizen Skripal in UK got a resounding rebuke from all of NATO when that happened. And now, certainly, if this is happening in Georgia, it would be all of us standing against that kind of terrible criminal activity on Russia's part. I would also say to you that the disinformation campaigns that Russia puts on in Georgia and Ukraine, as well as many of our countries, is also something that we call on Russia to cease.
Thanks a lot. We'll get back to the major topic of this interview. And of course, it is very important from my point of view to talk a bit about this new status provided to Ukraine. I mean, it has opportunities partner. Could you please tell me why now? Because several months ago, in your interviews and in other interviews of NATO representatives, Ukraine was discussed as the country that should develop its processes, democracy, work on corruption and other issues. And now, finally, Ukraine got this status. Why now, and why is it important from your point of view?
Well, Ukraine is important to all of us because, first of all, we stand for their sovereign integrity, and the illegal attempted takeover of Crimea, as well as the continuing destabilizing forces in the Donbass of Ukraine by Russia, is something that all of us are trying to work for Ukraine to overcome. And I think the Enhanced Opportunity Partnership is a very special level of partnership of NATO. And now is most certainly the time, if not overtime, for Ukraine to receive this status. And it was a unanimous approval because we want them to have more interoperability, more training, more joint efforts with NATO so that they will one day have the capability to have an armed forces that is strong, a democracy that's strong, an anti-corruption campaign, independent judiciary. All of these things that are building that country are in the works, and we support President Zelensky's efforts to really reform in every way Ukraine for the good of the people.
Does this status provide any higher level of security for Ukraine, more abilities to defend itself?
Well, I think certainly the interoperable training capabilities. The U.S., as you know, has agreed to sell arms to Ukraine. We have many forces that work with the Ukrainian military for advising on how to build their military for a strong and honest and effective unit. Ukraine is helping NATO in Afghanistan and in some of our other missions, and it's very valuable. It's valuable for NATO and for our countries, but it's very valuable for the training that these troops are getting also to come back and serve in Ukraine. So I think that it does have many more opportunities for working together than they've ever had before. And I think that their status is one of very few other countries that are held by very few other countries, only 5 or 6 enhanced opportunity partners in the whole world. So it's a very special status and one that will bring much more coordination and contribution.
Thanks a lot. Could you please tell me, for both for Georgia and Ukraine, the major thing, of course, regarding the hot war in Ukraine, regarding hybrid war in Georgia, the major thing is obtaining a membership in the NATO. In 2008, unfortunately, from my point of view, Georgia and Ukraine didn't get any status, and it was we saw a war in Georgia in 2008. After that, Ukraine didn't get MAP. And we saw annexation of Crimea and war in Donbass. How many territories should Putin occupy for NATO capitals to invite these two countries that are really fighting for values we all share together?
Well, I certainly think the enhanced opportunity partnerships, which now Georgia and Ukraine have, do elevate their status and elevate the coordination with those countries. And I think that they are building in the right direction. And I think Ukraine has a way to go, and they know that they do. And President Zelensky was elected, as I saw, on a reform agenda. And I think he is keeping going in that direction, which is the right direction. And I think that you know, from a country that has had over 200 years of experience, we are still trying to perfect democracy and making sure that we are doing things in the right way. And we have made mistakes, and we're making mistakes. And I think any country that's just coming out of the Soviet domination that they have known for so many years is going to have a way to go forward with reform and the destabilization efforts that Russia is making to keep them from being able to have their full sovereign capability it's very troubling, and that's why we're standing with them against this Russian destabilization effort. And we will continue to work with them and hope that one day they will meet the requirements for the strong democracies and the reforms that will make them eventually one of our allies. Right now,
thanks a lot. Sorry. Thanks a lot. Just a short question in regard with Ukraine and the last about Georgia. My colleagues from Ukraine, from very good news agency Union, asked me about a very important issue for Ukrainians. I consulted with them what is important for Ukrainian people. And they were saying that in 2008, US, for example, supported, as we know, supported MAP for Ukraine, but unfortunately some European capitals didn't support it, and they do not now still. Do you believe that European capitals should have some political responsibility because of the war that happened in 2014 and is still taking place for not even giving MAP?
Well, I think that every country has got to make its own decisions. I think NATO is unified and the NATO countries are unified in wanting this enhanced partnership with Ukraine. We are looking for the reforms that would assure that there is a stable democracy, a rule of law, independent judiciary, and an independent press. All of these things are prerequisites to beginning to go into the European Union or NATO. So I think that all of these things are going in the right direction, and we just want to do everything we can to keep it going in the right direction.
But I'm sorry, could you please tell me, when Ukraine and Georgia, I'm in Georgia and I'm very concerned about Georgian membership to NATO, when Ukraine and Georgia will reach these standards, and as I've heard from many NATO representatives, Georgia actually did already, will it be possible for European capitals to make this decision because of ongoing Russia's aggression against these countries? I understand that they're afraid of being involved into some conflict the moment NATO membership will be provided. Is it possible when these countries will reach the standard to enter the alliance from your point of view?
Well, I don't think you can put a timeline on it. It has to evolve, and there has to be a stable democracy throughout the region of these countries. And as long as they are going in the right direction, we're going to be helpful to them in every way.
Understood. The last question will be about Georgia. I think it's very clear about Ukraine. As I know, as many times NATO high-level representatives stated, Georgia is ready for NATO membership, and it is a political decision to be made by all capitals, Washington, D.C., Brussels, and etc. So could you please tell me, is this situation now, when Secretary Pompeo, for example, discussed the unity of free countries facing common threats, is a good option for some huge step in regard with Georgia movement towards NATO or alliance with the United States?
Well, I certainly think that everything that can be done will be done with Georgia. And first of all, I think we really need to work on getting the Russian destabilization out of the two provinces that they have tried to claim, but which clearly are sovereign Georgia territory. That's a dispute that needs to be settled with Russia withdrawing from those provinces of Georgia. And we will work with the Georgians to achieve that result as time would allow for that to be done. And the Georgians are definitely going in the right direction. They are working on all of the pillars of a strong democracy and a stable democracy, and we will be supporting them in that effort all the way until we hope one day that Georgia, as well as Ukraine, will be allies in NATO.
We have 30 seconds left. Could you please tell me, United States separately support at the moment Georgia's integration into NATO, I mean membership?
Well, I think the Georgians know that the U.S. has supported their eventual role in NATO as an ally, and that we have helped them. We have established centers in Georgia for their defense and the deterrence of Russian aggression there. We are very close as the United States with both Georgia and Ukraine. We want to help them achieve the status of an ally in NATO, and we will work with them until it happens.
Thanks a lot, Ambassador Hutchinson. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you.